Hello and welcome to the Brit Iron's Week 12 preview episode. I'm your host James, and as ever I'm joined by Matt and Sam. Now before we get into things, just like to give a quick shout out to the UKTouchdown.com. It's a great site for signed NFL and college memorabilia within the UK. Everything on the website is fully 100% legit, all verified, so you know exactly what you're getting for your money. And also on the website there are some nicely written articles about things that have gone on the NFL past and previews for the future as well. So be sure to check those out whilst you're on your travels on the website. But without further ado, let's get into the news. And we've got one news article this week, just one to talk about. Sad news surrounding the Bengals quarterback situation, in the fact that Joe Burrow is going to be out for 12 months or perhaps longer, depending on how the recovery goes. Yep. Just like to offer our prayers and thoughts to Burrow at this time, because it was not pleasant to watch that happen to him, was it?
Horrible to watch. And he was on track to potentially be Offensive Rookie of the Year. His name is certainly up there. He's having a really good year and a real bright spark on that team. So as you say, prayers up, and here's to a swift and full recovery for him. I'm sure he'll be back terrorising defenses for many years to come.
Yeah, gruesome one. Not one you want to see. ACL, MCL, structural damage. Just hopefully he can come back, be as good as he was, and yeah, best wishes for him.
Yeah, fingers crossed for him, because like we said, that really sucked to watch. But right, let's get into the more positive stuff, the Week 12 previews. And we have no teams on a bye this week, so we're going to see every single team in action, which is brilliant to see.
Full slate.
And of course, it's Thanksgiving games this Thursday, so we have 3 games happening this week on Thursday. And we'll kick it off with the Texans going in to play the Lions. Now, last week, the Lions got slightly shut out by the Panthers, which was not good to watch. Scored 0 points. Yeah. Awful performance. Do you guys reckon they can bounce back from that this week against the Texans? Although the Texans are favourites.
I'm not sure, but it's the Lions. Like we said this going to that Lions-Panthers game. It depends on who shows up. And the worst version of that Lions team did. Who knows? Maybe this week we'll get the best version, or like the good version of the version where Stafford just moves the ball and looks great, or it'll be the same again. I think I'm leaning towards Texans. I think for them getting that win over the Patriots, I think the Patriots aren't a great team. But I think, on the record, they're better than the Texans going into it. But they got it done. And I think for them here, maybe try and keep it moving a bit. I mean, can't be any thoughts of tanking for them. It's just, let's just get what wins we can. I mean, they don't have a first and second round pick, so it's just a bit of a pride issue at stake here. And I think that might win them over on Sunday or Thursday.
Yeah. I mean, the Texans... They've won 3 out of their last 4 now. I think, or since O'Brien left, they are putting some wins together. So I think the Texans being favourite is fair, especially at -3. I really quite like that. I think given how badly the Lions played last weekend, you might have expected to see maybe a +4 or +5 line, but to get the Texans at a field goal, I really like that coming into this game. Obviously, the thing with the Lions is I just don't think they're going to be able to stop what is turning into, as the season's evolving, a really, really aggressive kind of passing attack by the Texans, and their receivers have started to work into the game and work into the season. So I'm really quite liking Deshaun Watson over 300 yards in this game as well. I think this could be a bit of a boring game to be the first one on Thanksgiving, but it'll be a nice warm up for the ones to follow.
Yeah, for sure. Interesting to see if DeAndre Swift is back for this game as well. You know, Houston haven't been great when it comes to stopping the run, so maybe if he comes back in, the Lions might have a slight avenue to play down there. But I think I'd agree with you guys as well. The Texans on the spread seems fair.
The Lions are just so beat up at the moment. They've got a number. I mean, with Kenny Golladay being kind of in and out of the squad, that is a real issue for them. And there have been issues with Stafford, but there were mumblings that he'd done something to his hand a couple of weeks ago, I think. Yeah. So I think this is a team that isn't coached very well, that is hit by injury, and kind of everything that's going wrong, that could go wrong, is going wrong. I would not be surprised if Matt Patricia isn't the next coach fired in the NFL.
Yeah, he's got to be up there. He's got to be up there on that list at the moment, especially getting shut out against a Panthers team that haven't looked great with their backup quarterback. And getting comfortably beaten, and by that young defense as well that's been exposed at points. It's a massive game for him, definitely. But I think James mentioned there, DeAndre Swift. I think if he plays and is healthy, I think he has a big game as well. That's going to be a prop bet that I'm keeping an eye on. I think anywhere around that 60 to 70 rushing yards, maybe up to 75, I'll be happily taking that. Maybe rolling that up with a few others later in the day.
Yeah, definitely some value there for sure. I think I'll be looking to do the same. But yeah, interesting if he is back and fighting fit for this one. But let's move on to the second game on Thursday. That sees the Washington football team going to play Dallas. Of course, Dallas always play on the Thursday for Thanksgiving. And both of these teams won last week, which is interesting to see. Alex Smith got his first win since his comeback, which was great for the storyline. And the Cowboys actually won a game, which is shocking. And of course, this is an in-division matchup as well. So who do we reckon gets the W here?
I think the Cowboys are probably coming into this the quite clear favourites, in my opinion. They're stronger. I think their defense is starting to play better football. Me and Matt were chatting about this last night, and it's the Cowboys have got the names at pretty much every position on the field to be a decent team. Like they've played so far under what everyone expected them to be and what we thought they could be this season, that if they started playing much better, it's not going to be a huge surprise because they do have the talent there. And it seems like maybe the coaching staff is getting something figured out, that the players are buying in a little bit more. And if that happens, I think the Cowboys take this comfortably. The Washington football team is just hit so hard by injuries at the wrong position and lack of depth and not having the answer long-term at quarterback and still kind of struggling to find an identity, that I think they're really, really going to struggle, especially with players like CeeDee Lamb just really kind of establishing himself and Zeke kind of working back into the fold.
Yeah, for me, this is my lock of the week. Going out there early with it, I think the Cowboys take this. I think Zeke and Pollard forming a nice little 1-2 punch. If they can get some momentum going, kind of keep it moving from last week, get a bit ahead of steam behind them too. Going to take some pressure off Dalton, means he just needs to be that Dalton line that everyone has talked about for years. And he's got all the playmakers to make that happen for him. The only concern is still that O-line, and the defense need to see it more. Need to see them stepping up more. But I mean, I think they've turned the corner. I think now they've got that win and had some of those players come out and give the performances you expect, they're looking at it like, hang on, we can still get into the playoffs here. And hey, it's a whole new season once you get in the playoffs. I mean, that isn't me going any kind of hot takes here and they're going to win anything, but it's a whole new season. Like, things get forgotten. You can just come out there when the lights are brightest. Who knows what happens? But yeah, I think I'm really liking the Cowboys. I mean, getting them at -1 as well. I'll happily have that. I think they take this by a touchdown.
Yeah, I think you're probably right. I think, Zeke and Dalton looked a lot better last week, a lot more refreshed coming off the bye. I think it was the week before. So it's hard to go against him. Be interested to see how the Cowboys' run defense handles Washington with Gibson.
Yeah,
that might be an avenue for Washington to get a win here, but I think I'm with you on this one, Matt. I think I'm definitely favouring the -1 spread.
It's an absolutely brilliant. I mean, it's a brilliant, terrible division in my opinion, because now that we're getting to the business end of the season and you've got 6 or 5 weeks left after this week.
Yep.
How many other divisions have got all 4 teams genuinely in play?
Yeah,
like the way that this has worked out, although these are probably 4 of the worst teams in the entire NFL, the fact that they're all bundled into one division is going to mean that this could come down to a playoff spot in the last weekend, and you could have it going to a 6-win team at this point. It's laughable, but it's going to happen. So games like this, as it enters this kind of time of the season on Thanksgiving, I think even though this sounds like a boring matchup, and given the teams and everything that's going on, I think this has got the kind of the potential and the history behind it to turn into a really good game.
Yeah, I'm actually looking forward to this one most, I think, out of these Thanksgiving games. I just think this is going to be, in terms of just fun to watch, potentially. I don't know. Yeah. I just see this being the most, just from a casual entertainment point of view. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, it should be a good one. I think I'm with you as well. best game out of the three, and that's coming from a Ravens fan as well. Which leads us very nicely onto the final Thanksgiving game. That sees the Ravens going to play the Steelers. Now, the Ravens are on a downward slope, I think we can all agree.
Yeah.
And with the news that Mark Ingram and J.K. Dobbins are going to be out because they've been put on the COVID list, do the Ravens stand a chance here against the Steelers?
Yeah. I'm locking this one up. I think the Ravens win this game in prime time, Thanksgiving.
Ooh.
Now, this is because, and I'm a big Steelers backer, but I don't think this team's going to go 16-0. I really don't. The Ravens have had a couple of games where it's clear that their offensive dominance from last season is not returning, and that to an extent they've probably been figured out a little bit. That being said, the things we're hearing out of this Ravens building and Lamar Jackson saying that the other teams just know what they're calling, yet the Ravens are still putting up 24, 25, 26 points a game. Like, it might say more to Lamar Jackson, the fact that they are consistently scoring points rather than just getting shut out. I think the Steelers have had a bit of a tendency to play down to teams, which will give the Ravens a shot at winning this game. Now, Vegas has only got the Steelers favoured by 2.5, which makes me think that Vegas thinks this is a coin flip game. And coin flip game, Lamar Jackson, I'm going to give him this one, and the Ravens Steelers go 1-1 on the year.
I think I'd be more inclined to kind of maybe get down that route of thinking if it wasn't for everything going on with the positive tests around the Ravens, and it's such a disrupted week for them. And I don't know, I think this Steelers team, as much as they play down to teams, and I think this is maybe what Vegas is starting to reflect in these spreads, is that then, especially against better teams, they're not going to win by a lot, but they just find a way to get it done. And if you take away 2 starting backs for that Ravens team against this defense as well, I don't know, I just worry how they're going to move the ball. Because I think Lamar hasn't looked great throwing it. We haven't seen as much of him getting out there and running it. And third string running backs, I mean, Gus Edwards on his day can look good, but not enough to take on this whole Steelers defense. I think without the COVID tests, I'd be on board. But I think for this one, I think the Steelers scrape through. I could see this being a scrappy game of football, though. One that is, from maybe a defensive point of view, good to watch. And from like game film point of view, good to watch. But in terms of as your primetime Thanksgiving game, just hope you got a few drinks in you to enjoy this one.
I understand what you mean, and I'm sure that we will have quite a few drinks in us by that point. I just think the Ravens' defense has not been bad this year, and they've got pieces there. And the issue for me is the Steelers have consistently had issues with running the ball. They can't settle on who their back is. They can't kind of just get the ball rolling. And against the Ravens, they've got such depth at running back. When you've got Justice Hill and Gus Edwards, and you've got these guys in the backfield who you can turn to, and you've got Lamar Jackson, and you consistently run the ball. I mean, the last time they played the Steelers, I think they put up like 260 yards rushing. Now, the number of teams that put up those kind of numbers rushing, have a lead at halftime, and then go on to lose the game, it's minimal. So I think if the Ravens can control the ball and they can get it moving, they don't need to be flashy run play, but what they do is they run the ball well. So if the Ravens can do that, and it's going to come down to great clock management and great game management. So I think this is a kind of a coach's game, but I think the Ravens will win this one.
Oh, potentially, but we also have to remember there's a few pieces missing on the Ravens D-line in Brandon Williams and Calais Campbell as well. So it's a bit scary. I know the Steelers haven't been that great at rushing the ball this year, as you mentioned, but it's still scary to me.
But I mean, you saw how much they struggled against the Cowboys a couple of weeks ago. I mean, when they needed, they just weren't putting running backs on the field against the Cowboys, who couldn't stop anything. So I think at some point the Steelers are going to have that game that just kind of fumbles away, and I think this is probably it.
Maybe because I'm biased, I don't think this is going to be it, but yeah.
Hey, back your team, man. Back your team.
Just a downward slope in it. It's hard to do at this point. But hopefully we get it right. We start fixing up and we steamroll through to the playoffs. But I'm not too confident about that, if I'm honest. Right, let's change our minds to Sunday, and we've got a 6 p.m. matchup between the Chargers and the Bills. And the Chargers got a routine win last week against the Jets, and the Bills are fresh off a bye. But this one, it really is a battle of two young, brilliant quarterbacks. Which one do you guys think will come out on top here?
I feel like this should feel quite cut and dry. But I think there's going to be a little bit now with this Chargers team if they've almost kind of finally broken that duck of being so close in games, albeit it was against the Jets, but more just doesn't matter who it was. The fact they got that win and they got that lead, or they kind of converted on it and got to the win. But for me, it just depends which version of the Bills are we getting, because we've seen two very different teams in those uniforms this year. So I think if the Bills come out and play sort of like they did against the Seahawks, I think it'll be high scoring, but I think they've got enough to take the win. I think give me this game next season, I'd be very, very hard pressed to choose. But I think for this one, I'm taking the Bills, but I don't think I'm going to be betting going to near this spread. I'm not sure if I trust that. If it was maybe around a field goal, then I might be looking at it. But I think the Chargers have had a lot of tight games this year, and I think that continues here.
It's a really interesting game, this, for me, just because I think there's two key factors that play into who wins this game. The main one probably is what version of Josh Allen are we getting? Are we getting a 450, 500-yard monster who's going to put up 3 passing touchdowns and 2 rushing touchdowns and then looks like the MVP? Or are we going to get a guy who's going to struggle to convert on third down and they're going to kind of stutter and there's going to be a lot of field goals? Now, on the flip side, you're looking at the other quarterback. Which Justin Herbert are we getting? Are we going to get the Justin Herbert who's going to drop dime and dime and dime and dime? Or are we going to get the Justin Herbert who throws 3 silly picks in a game? Now, obviously Herbert's young. He can be forgiven for that. But I think if you get either a combination of those, you get Herbert who throws loads of touchdowns and he cuts down on those picks and the Bills can't get the ball moving, then the Chargers theoretically win the game quite comfortably. But the Bills have started to get that offense going a lot more. Those struggles they had from like week 5, week 6, they've kind of been put behind them. And I just worry too much that Herbert will turn the ball over against what I still think is quite a good Bills defense. They're a Bills defense that have got a couple of great corners. Tre'Davious White's still going to be out there. I think the Bills take this. Mainly, it will be close, but I think there will be a silly mistake by the Chargers, a fumble or an interception.
Yeah, it's a hard one to call. This is the typical coin flip game that we always talk about for me. Every week, it's always a one coin flip game. This, for me, is the one. The Chargers do have Joey Bosa and Melvin Ingram back as well. They've been back the last couple of weeks, which should help bolster them up. But I think you're right. This Bills offense is quite good on its day, so it's hard to bet against it at this point for me, I think, personally. But let's shift things on to a blockbuster of a fixture, which, as you probably could tell by now if you listen to previous episodes, sees the Dolphins going to play the Jets. Now, Dolphins are -7 for this game, but there's question marks around the quarterback for the Fins. Which quarterback should start and which quarterback will start?
Tua should and will, I think, and this is just a get-right game for him. I think the statements he's made, as much as he might just be putting on the right face, sort of as that face the franchise, sort of being the team guy, saying it was what was right for the team. I just want to win. I think they've already said he is the starter. They just want to go a different direction in that game. And I think that's fair enough. It's just smart coaching. Try something different. Like, why watch something just not work for the whole game when you can maybe do something about it with someone like Fitzpatrick, who's come into games, he's made a career of it, coming in and turning games around. But I think it's still Tua's team, and we just know this is an option now. That if Tua has a game where he looks a bit out of his depth, rather than kind of making him kind of almost suffer through it and throwing that away, they're playing it serious. They want to be there in January. They want to be in the playoffs.
You see, I don't think this is Tua's team. It's not for me to say that I don't think that it isn't Tua's team. But I mean, when Fitzmagic got dropped and Tua took the starting role, Fitzmagic came out and he said, of all of my benchings, this is the one that hurt the most. It felt like this was my team. It felt like the locker room was behind me. And I feel like this is very much a team that has faith in both of these guys. That if one guy gets pulled and the other one comes in, the guys lining up at the line of scrimmage with him have full faith in either of those guys. There's not going to be questions. Now, and this kind of harkens back to what I've said in the last couple of episodes. I think they're going to ride the hand in each game that they think gives them the chance to win. So I think Tua starts this week. But if Tua comes out and plays badly against the Jets of all teams, I think there's a real chance that he gets pulled again and that Fitzmagic's starting the week after, because they've very quickly gone from being a team who's rebuilding to, oh, we could be relevant now, to, oh, we could make the playoffs now, to, oh, we could win our division now. Like, in the space of 3 or 4 weeks. And the big thing is, those wins are largely not coming from their offense. They're coming from their defense. So they're going to ride the hand that gives them the best chance to win in the game, which, if Tua plays poorly, he might get benched again. And then this time in a week, we're seeing Fitzmagic getting given the starting gig back.
I think that sums it up, doesn't it?
Yeah.
I just can't see him doing that this early into his when they put him in, they knew it's a gamble and they knew they were trending upwards on the year. Was it 3 straight wins they had when they put him in or something? They were on a streak. When you've drafted him to be your guy of the future, you know Fitzpatrick, he's getting on. He is not the guy. He is good. He's a good quarterback, and it seems to be working for him that we're getting none of the sort of nightmare matches from him. But you can't, I don't think, if you did replace Tua, you just put question marks in his head. It's so hard then when you try and bring him back in, you've already kind of said, he's not going. I don't know. I think from a franchise point of view, they won't. And for them to have put Tua in, they have the faith in him. It's just if they need to and he doesn't look great, they'll bring in Fitzmagic, but I don't think he gets dropped as the starter. Yeah, unless he has like 3-4, unless he goes the whole rest of the season.
I think if they came out hypothetically and they lost this game to the Jets and Tua played badly and threw a couple of interceptions, then I think Fitzmagic takes over, because they're in a spot that they can win their division now. And like you said earlier, once you get to the playoffs, nothing else matters, and it's 4 games. You don't have to be the best team on the season once you get to the playoffs. It's 4 games. At which point, if you make it to January and you're like, we've got a shot. I mean, 9 and 7 teams have gone all the way before. The Giants in 2011, they went all the way. 2012, whenever it was, they went all the way. They weren't the best team on the year. They just played 4 great games. So at that point, they will put in, and if you're getting to the business end, they will put in the player that gives them the best chance to win now, while also protecting Tua. If they think that it's in Tua's best interests to sit, learn, and kind of not necessarily take all this heat for losing them a playoff berth, they will do that. And in my opinion, if your franchise guy can't handle getting benched from a mental standpoint, then you've got bigger issues, because he's the kind of guy who's probably always going to be looking over his shoulder at the next guy in.
It's a bold take, I think.
Yeah,
it's a bold take. But moving back onto the game, of course, the Jets also have quarterback question marks as well. Darnold might be back fit, or it could be Flacco again. And actually, looking at this one now, this is probably my lock of the week for the Dolphins, because I can't see it any other way. Like, I know it's an easy lock of the week, but I'm going for it this week.
Safe money lock of the week.
That is the literal definition of low-hanging fruit there, James.
Well, the Jets have been putting up close points, last couple of days, and they're not the worst team against the spread this season, so it could happen. But if they go back to Darnold, then it's an easy lock-up for me. Flacco's a bit more tight, but...
What do you guys think happens with Flacco and Darnold coming towards the end of the year? Do you think, the Jets are going to get the number 1 pick. Is it as simple as Trevor Lawrence goes there, or do we think there's any chance that they ride with Darnold?
No, I think Darnold's getting moved. Darnold, they're going to do, I think they're going to ship. Then again, who knows? Could be the most Jets thing. They keep Adam Gase around, they keep Darnold for him, and they go,
oh my God.
They just go completely, either trade away the first pick or takes, I don't know.
That would be laughable.
There's going to be, I think, a trade on and very close to draft night involving the Jets, and it will either be Darnold's out or the first pick's getting moved. And with the Jets being the dreadful organisation they are, I don't actually want to try and even call what they do with that, because there is still risk to Trevor Lawrence. Because do they want to draft a guy who potentially just doesn't want to be there? Like, do they want to put another quarterback through that, or do they want to get
any quarterback going to want to go there? I mean, if you're sat at number one, I mean, that Jets situation, does any quarterback want to go there? I mean, forget just Justin Fields, Trevor Lawrence. I mean, if you're Kyle Trask and you're sat there and you get picked up maybe in the second round, do you want to be at the Jets? I mean, they've got so many issues, and they've clearly for a long time not fixed them. Do you reckon that's the kind of thing that a quarterback might turn around and just say, I'm not playing there?
Well, it depends on mentality, isn't it? You know, if they really back themselves, they'd back themselves to play in any situation, including the Jets, in my opinion. So that's what it really comes down to for me.
But I think Sam Darnold's a great quarterback, and I think he'd back himself. But I mean,
yeah, but is he good? Well, it's a bad organisation.
I don't know. I don't know if he'd back himself that highly anymore. I think he's had a bit of
It's like the Josh Rosen argument. Josh Rosen backed himself, but I mean, the 2 times that he did get opportunities to start, he just had terrible situations.
Yeah, I tend to agree. But yep, I'm going to lock up this matchup. I think taking the Dolphins on the spread. Don't like the Jets. Adam Gay's still there as well. Just like to mention that one before we move on.
I thought we were going to be able to move past that. I've been deliberately keeping quiet.
Someone's got to mention it, otherwise it's not an episode of the Brit Iron Podcast. Right, let's kick things on and move into the Cardinals playing the Patriots. The Patriots have been such a hit and miss team of recent. You know, they beat the Ravens, and then they lost to the Texans, and now they're underdogs against the Cardinals. Do you guys fancy them in this game at all, or is it just going to be the Cardinals walking all over them?
I'm happy to take the spread -2 for the Cardinals.
Yeah.
Yes, please. I don't know where that's come from. I think, okay, they lost to the Seahawks, but serve a lot of teams. And it's not like they looked dreadful in doing it. It's not like they look like a team you think, oh, the Patriots could beat them here. Like, I think for me, yeah, the Cardinals take this, and I might even look for an adjusted spread, something a bit more in favour of the Cardinals, get my odds better, because I think they take this by a touchdown. I think they come out and say, no, we're still a relevant team. We're still looking to be there in January. And they just roll through them for me.
Yeah. The Cardinals offensively are just miles better than the Patriots. And when you kind of then consider that Patriots offense is going up against a really solid quarterback duo in Patrick Peterson and Budda Baker, I don't have that much faith that they're actually going to be able to move the ball that well on the Cardinals. But on the flip side, I think the Cardinals will be able to move the ball pretty easily on the Patriots. So just by that logic, I think getting the Cardinals at -2 seems like the easiest steal of the week. Like, chuck that in all of your ACCAs. That is one that I think if it doesn't come in, there'll be a lot of people very sad.
Yeah, it's hard to bet against the Cardinals at this point. You know, Cam Newton's so random and erratic throughout this season that you just never know what you're going to get from him. And that just puts so many question marks when trying to back any Patriots matchup right now. And yeah, I'm tending to agree with you guys as well. Cardinals -2 seems incredibly favourable.
Yeah.
So
be really interested to see what the Patriots do going forward with their skill positions, because this may be the worst team in the league, in my opinion, at a number of their skill positions. Like wide receiver, they've got no one. I think they're pretty weak at running back. They've got so many holes to fill, and then there's the quarterback question. So I think the Patriots have got so much to do this off-season, because I think they're done for the year now.
Oh yeah, without a doubt.
No doubt.
Without a doubt.
Yeah, in that division, you can't see them getting much out of this season. It's like you said, they're done on this year, and be interested to see what the makeup of the team looks like next season for sure. But they're obviously missing Brady, so sucks for them.
Got to find a new one.
Find the new Brady, because that's the easiest thing to do.
Yeah.
Right now, anyway. Right, another matchup at 6 p.m. sees the Panthers going to Minnesota to play the Vikings. Vikings are -4 on the spread, favourites. But they did have a shock loss to the Cowboys last week. And with Mike Davis looking more and more impressive for the Panthers, do you reckon the Vikings can set the record straight this week?
I feel like they will. I think that result between Vikings and Cowboys was more on the side of the Cowboys. I think you've seen the articles come out about, what was it, Mike McCarthy like smashing watermelons with a sledgehammer or whatever, and then meeting and getting them all absolutely just riled up. I think that was just purely one of those things of the Cowboys were just feeling themselves and said, right, we're setting it straight. We've actually got faith in the quarterback, the guy we're snapping the ball to, and went with it. So I think it's less on the Vikings. And I think the Vikings take this. I don't know if I'm going near the spread. This might just be one I keep more money line, because I could see it being a tight game. But again, which version of the Panthers do we get? Because every week we're going to have to ask the same question. And who's going to be out there at quarterback? What are we going to see? Is the defense going to have one of its good games, or are they going to get exposed and look just young? And I mean, if your defense isn't having a good day and you've got Dalvin Cook coming at you, I know who I'm putting my money behind. So for me, I'm going Vikings money line. I think it's my bet on this game.
Yeah, I like that one. The Vikings money line seems like the kind of safe one here. I don't like them at -4, just because I really hate bets that are -4. It's like not quite a field goal, but not quite high enough that you think they're comfortably going to win. What's going to be really interesting to see this game is, can the Panthers shut down Dalvin Cook? It seems to be like Dalvin Cook is this Vikings kind of the nucleus of this Vikings offense. When he's not playing great, everything else around the team kind of shuts down a bit more. Obviously, there are other players that are just going off. Jefferson had a great game last week, but I feel like everything goes through Dalvin Cook, and if they can stop him, they can stop the rest of the team. You put more pressure on Kirk Cousins to have to throw for the win. And that's their kind of win conditions, to shut down Cook. That being said, I don't think they'll do it. Vikings money line quite comfortably.
Yeah, it's hard to shut down Dalvin Cook at this point. He's absolute animal this season. He's really proven his worth. But for the Panthers side, Teddy Bridgewater should be back for this week, and Christian McCaffrey's a bit more up in the air. Some rumours saying that he is out already, but you never know. With him back, maybe they can compete. But I think you're right, Sam. I think Dalvin Cook's just going to...
They probably just want to hold him out as well. They're paying him so much money. Just get him back healthy. Don't rush him back.
Yeah, get him back, get him firing. 100%. You don't want to risk him at this point, especially with Mike Davis looking like he's doing a good job anyway. So it's not as if they're completely missing a decent running back at this point in the season. So, but yeah, Vikings. Dalvin Cook's going to walk all over this Panthers team, I think, 100%. Right, 6 p.m. on Sunday also sees your Giants, Sam, off the back of a bye, going to play the Bengals, currently sit at 2-7-1. And of course, we mentioned at the start of the episode, Burrow is out for the season and is going to miss this game, of course. How will they cope without him, and do you reckon it will matter against the Giants team?
Yeah,
I think it does massively. Yeah. This is a Giants team that's been trending in the right direction, and now I think you're going to see this Bengals team through no fault of their own. They are just going to be trending in the wrong direction. I think because there's been games where Burrow has thrown to keep them in that game, and him stepping up is the only reason they've looked like, okay, there's someone here in the Bengals. So for me, the Giants, as long as they come out and keep doing what they were doing before, they seem to have sort of reinvigorated this offense, have mixed it up a bit, letting Daniel Jones use the wheels he's got, cycling through the running backs and just working the ball, and the defense started to look competent. Xavier McKinney coming back as well, I think could be big for them. Obviously, it might take him a few games to get properly into the NFL. Still a rookie, but I think that's a big boost for them. He's a very talented guy. So I think the Giants take this, and I think the fact that the spread is in the Bengals' favour at -2.5, great bet to place this week if you can get the Giants plus. So that's what I'm looking at.
The thing that you kind of feel bad for the Bengals here is when you look at a number of their players that have kind of been the key driving force behind all of the positives around the Bengals this year. It's a lot of rookies. So you've got Joe Burrow and you've got T. Higgins, and the driving force behind the offensive revelation they've had, and the fact they're putting up yards and they're putting up points again. But I worry that without Joe Burrow, Higgins won't be as productive, because, I mean, it's one thing to ask a rookie to come in and be productive, especially a rookie wide receiver, but then, easy for me to say, but then when you pair him with a new quarterback that he maybe doesn't have as much time working with, not as many reps with, I think it's unlikely that he will be quite as productive. So against the Giants defense that has started to look almost quite good in the last 5-6 weeks, then I'm actually quite comfortable taking the Giants with the spread at +2.5. That seems easy for me, but I would take the money line here as well. Yeah,
it'd be interesting to see how this spread transforms as the week goes on. I feel like it might go more in the favour of the Giants. It just seems almost ridiculous that the Bengals will be favourites going into this game.
To be fair, I believe that this initial spread is the opening spread. So these are the ones that will have been released basically as soon as the game week from last week finished. So this, I would imagine, has come out just before we get the news on the length of Burrow's injury, which will almost definitely affect that.
Yeah, that makes sense as to why it's that. So if the Giants were, say, for example, minus 2.5, would you still want to take them on the spread?
Yeah.
Still comfortable? Okay, makes sense.
I think
maybe
I'd take
even
them
lean
up
up
to 4.
towards. I was going to say, actually, I'd lean up towards 6.5 here. I think they take us by a touchdown. I think the Bengals are going to struggle. We've said it, like, whoever comes in at quarterback, they're not going to instantly be on the same page as these receivers, instantly be working with T. Higgins the way Burrow was. And Burrow is, albeit Higgins has helped, there's been other pieces that have helped. He's the difference between this team being the one picking first and where they were trending towards now, which wasn't a ton better, but they look competitive. So I think this could be a real rough end to this year for Bengals fans. Quite a tough break for them.
Make the NFC East great again.
Yeah, about that. I mean, it might take a little while, but at least the Giants can compete in it this time around. I guess that's the beneficiary here. Whereas the Bengals have no chance in the AFC North. It's already gone for them before Burrow's injury, so in that respect, doesn't really make a difference. But it still sucks to see him get injured like that. It's hard to watch. Anyway, let's move things on and let's talk about the Raiders going to Atlanta to play the Falcons. Now, Matt Ryan was sacked 8 times last week in what was a very bad day out against the Saints. Of course, they lost. I mean, is keeping Matt Ryan up key to a win here, or is their defense just going to let him down once again?
I mean, they've got to, because, that defense isn't going to do anything to help. Like, if that offense isn't firing, you don't have a Falcons team, really, to be honest, this season. Like, they have to be throwing and they have to be putting up the yards to have any shot. And this is a Raiders team that are very competitive. They're a few coin flips out from a really nice record, and even without that, it's a solid record. It's one of the best versions of this Raiders team we've seen in a while. Derek Carr looks like a whole new quarterback this season. Yeah. And I think Raiders at -3? Thank you very much. Putting my money straight on that.
The Raiders' T-line's actually been pretty good this year as well.
Yeah.
And coming off a game where, as you said, Matt Ryan gets sacked 8 times, going to play a Raiders team which has got that kind of D-line with Derek Carr playing, and I hate to admit it, but he's playing maybe the best football of his career. And I would have no faith as a Falcons fan. I think like Matt said, -3 again. This seems like up there with the Cardinals this week as steal of the week for the for your spread bet. Put all your money on that. Put your house on it. Put your kids on it.
Wow, that's a bold take, but it's one that I probably would agree with that. It's quite easy to agree with that, to be honest with you. Raiders will look good this season, I think. And like you said, Derek Carr, one of the best statistic years of his career. So it's hard to bet against them at this point. And Atlanta just not doing what I want them to do this year. Albeit with a great offense, but not cutting it really. Right, let's shift things on once more into another 6 p.m. game on Sunday that sees the Browns go in to play the Jaguars. The Browns are continuing to look impressive this season. They got a 7-3 record, a win against the Eagles last week, although that is the Eagles, so it doesn't really count. And they now sit second in the AFC North, which is something that I don't think many of us would have predicted at this point in the season. Especially as a Ravens fan, it's hard to see. It just shows our decline at the moment in time. Will they continue this form against the Jaguars, who haven't looked great all season and currently sit 1-9?
Yeah. I mean, they take this win. It's a weird thing because their wins are coming off defense at the moment. Like, they're not putting up a ton of points. Baker's not looking great. He's kind of just a weird middle ground of what he was. It seems like he doesn't have that same swagger, that confidence. I don't know, it seems like almost the kind of character of Baker's missing, which you can almost just see in the way this offense is playing. But they're just grinding it out. When you've got Chubb and Kareem Hunt, you can afford to do that and just lean on your defense. This is old school football. It's trust your defense to do its job and then just grind out the clock when you've got the ball. You don't have to put up big numbers if you're not allowing big numbers. And this Jags team aren't really a team that's going to be putting up big numbers anyway. So I think it will be comfortable. I don't think I'm going near the spread just because of how low scoring they are. I won't be shocked if they get it, But there's part of me that could see this being some weird, like, I don't know, just comes down to maybe like a 5-point line, just an odd scoreline. Low, whenever it's a low scoreline, it's weird for the spread. So I think Browns money line 100%. But outside of that, I just don't trust because they're not putting up quite enough to cover a touchdown spread.
The Browns have really been kind of failing to cover over the last couple of weeks, haven't they? Like that Texans game where they really should have covered, and then I'm sure a lot of people that have money on them and Chubb kind of ran us
the smart
aside.
play.
But
Don't mention it. Don't mention it.
But I mean, they've got the best backfield in the league probably at this point, and like you say, when you've got a great backfield and a great defense, then that's a recipe to win a lot of games, and it's a recipe that a lot of teams have ridden a long way. So against just a bad Jags team, I think we can all be quite comfortable in assuming that they will keep it moving and move up to what they'll be at 8-3 now. A couple of years ago, who'd have thought we'd be saying that about a Browns team? What I find interesting, and maybe this is a bit less about this specific game, but is obviously you mentioned earlier, Matt, Baker not really. He doesn't feel like Baker, and he's not throwing. He's not throwing them to win and stuff like that. Do you think they move on from him at some point in the next 2 years? Or is he kind of in that Trubisky state where he's winning games, so it's hard to move on from him, but he's not really the answer?
This is difficult. I think they give him, it's almost going to be similar to the Jameis situation. You give him the full length of time you can. You get the maximum period to evaluate him. And then you make the call. I don't think this is one where they do anything early. I think because they're not going to be in a position to do anything too great unless it's through free agency. But they're going to have they're going to have to manage their cap at points as well, because there's a lot of big names on that team. There's some studs across the defense as well. It's not one where they could just go out and say, "Oh right, I don't know." In the future, let's say suddenly Aaron Rodgers pops up on free agency in a couple of years' time. Right, let's pay him. Yeah. I just don't see it. So I think they give him the full amount of time, and the whole time they're winning, as much as it limits them because they can't turn it on if they need to. I think Baker's shown enough at points to warrant it.
Yeah, and like you say there, Matt, their record at the moment is 7-3. You'd be silly to turn away from a quarterback like that at this point.
Trubisky was 2-0.
Very different.
Very different situations.
See, I'm not sure they're at that different quarterbacks at this stage.
I just mean the records. 7-3 to 2-0, monstrous difference.
Fair enough.
Yeah, it's not the same.
but there were those questions around Trubisky when he took them and they went 12-4.
But Trubisky at that point, it wasn't really him that took them to it. He didn't lead that as such. Like the points when you've seen Baker look good, he has looked great. Whereas when Trubisky's looked good, he's looked average.
Yeah, fair enough.
For me,
give him more time.
Maybe that's harsh on Trubisky. Who knows?
One more year. One more year.
Oh God, don't get political on us. To move it back to this game, that spread I'm actually going to take this week. I know what we're saying about the Browns having close scoring games the last few weeks, but let's also remember the last 3 weeks they've had heavy rain and heavy wind in all those games. So if you're looking at the weather, as we British people like to do, then maybe that's a factor. And I haven't seen anything bad coming out about the weather again this week in Jacksonville. So if that stays the same, I'm happy to take the Browns on the spread at -6. A bit more comfortable doing that, I think. But that's just me. Right. One more 6 p.m. matchup sees the Titans go into Indianapolis to play the Colts. Both teams staged comebacks last week. And this is actually a repeat of week 10, I believe it was, when these two teams faced last time out. And the Colts stormed to victory again that time, which for me was a bit of a shock at that point. But are we going to see the same again here?
I think we might. I think this Colts team, Phillip Rivers is keeping it together enough and letting these backs do work, and the defense is doing its job. Like, this team is playing, I think, to its ceiling at the moment. It is playing well, and the whole time they keep doing that, they're going to be a tough opponent for anyone in the league. Whereas the Titans, albeit, they did manage to get that win back against the Ravens. They nearly did it against the Steelers. I think this could be a game where the Colts get up and the Titans are trying to come back into it and win, because that just seems to be the game scripts they find themselves in these big matches. But I think the Colts take it. Avoiding the spread. I think I'm avoiding betting on this one because it is just two playoff caliber teams and any given Sunday.
Yeah.
But I think it's one I just kind of want to watch and see what happens. And it's going to be, I think, a hard fought one. It's two more running-based teams with decent defenses, so it might not be massive scoring. But then again, when you've got Derrick Henry out there, who knows? He can always break one off for 98 yards and put points up that way. So,
yeah,
I'm going to say Colts if I had to, but I ain't put my money there.
This is a game that will come down to coaching, I think, and which team is coached better. So I think the Colts are coached better. Having said that, I love the way that the Titans are coached in that their Vrabel is just so aggressive. He's the kind of guy, he will go for it on fourth down, no issues. He will go for it. He will go for two when you have a chance to tie the game, like he did a couple of years ago in London, and he goes for two to win it. And that kind of aggressive coaching style, going up and maybe against a slightly more conservative coaching style with the Colts. But I think the Colts are the better coach team and will win it through that. I get the feeling this might not be a crazy high-scoring one, just because historically Titans-Colts don't put up crazy high-scoring games, and something about in-division games just don't necessarily excite me for scores. But I am going to take the Colts, but I take the Titans on the spread because I think it could be quite close.
Yeah, it's so hard to call for me. This is one I'll have to sit on the fence once again, I think. Which I think is what I did last time round for these two teams.
Yeah, that does ring a bell.
Yeah, so I just can't tear them apart. My heart says Colts, but my head says Titans, and trying to put money on this one is just too difficult. So I think I'm just going to avoid it this week, or maybe split the loads between different bets, different accumulators. You know, it seems maybe that's the safer option. But for me, yeah, I'm staying well away from betting on this game, and I just enjoy the matchup, I think, at this point in time for me. But let's shift things on to the late window on Sunday. We have a 9:05 matchup between the Saints and the Broncos. Now, Taysom Hill had quite a brilliant week 11, which is good to see. I think he was QB4 when we're talking about fantasy football, which was pretty damn good, all things considered. So do we want to see him again against the Broncos, or maybe Winston come in?
Nah, he's earned this start.
Yeah,
Taysom Hill looked good, and it's everything that the Saints were saying, and it's why they paid him. And it's just one game. It's that kind of new starter feeling against a Falcons team that doesn't have a great defense. We've spoken about it before, but he looked good. And this is another game that the Broncos, they haven't looked great. So it's another game we could come out, look good again, and really stake his claim for this job. I think now he's going to have... There's less questions going into this week. He hasn't got all the media on him. He hasn't got everyone saying he's a tight end in fantasy. He's not even a quarterback. All those kind of things. It's just, all right, he can play. He can be a quarterback in this league. So off the sample we have, it looks like he can be. And I think for him now, it's just keep that rolling and really show he can do it consistently game in, game out. I think there's no questions about the result of this game. The defense is rolling. Hill got on a page with Michael Thomas, and that is the recipe for this Saints team to win. It has been for years. So I think they just keep it moving in at -6. I'll happily take that as a spread. I think they take this by... I could see this being like a 10-point win, potentially. I could see this being a comfortable one for the Saints.
Yeah, I think this is a game that they're going to win via defense. I quite like a prop bet-wise. I think Saints special teams defensive touchdown could be quite a tasty bet this week. Really, really have found issues this season with the Broncos' offense. I don't think they are quite as set a quarterback as they thought they were. You've had a number of mistakes being made, and this Saints defense is rolling. It's starting to look really good, and I think that is something that they will be able to capitalise on, and as soon as they smell blood in the water, they'll go for the throat. So I think Taysom Hill comes in, gets the job done. He's probably not going to come out and throw for loads and loads of yards or do anything spectacularly amazing, but I don't think they need him to do that. They will let the Saints defense and Drew Lock's picks kind of do the rest. I'm kind of out on Drew Lock at this point. I just haven't seen what I wanted to see from him this season. I think he sometimes doesn't necessarily know where he's throwing the ball. He's just kind of chucking it up there and hoping. Bit maybe too much of a gunslinger for me, but the Saints defense will have a field day with him.
Yeah, that defense is mean. You know, I think they're second
defense.
best against the run as well. So even if Drew Lock wants to rely on, Melvin Gordon, Philip Lindsay, he struggled to do that. At which point, putting the ball into Drew Lock's hands, like you sort of mentioned there, Sam, is a risky business because he just loves to throw the ball. for interceptions and turning the ball over to the opposition. At which point, Taysom Hill's just going to capitalise, and that Saints offense are going to get it rolling. So I'm with you boys as well. I'm happy to take the Saints at -6 for this game. But we have another 9:05 matchup on Sunday. That sees the 49ers go in to play the Rams. Of course, Nick Mullins is going to be the starter again this time out for the Niners. But he's going up against a Rams defense that looks incredible this year. Do you reckon he has what it takes, or is it just too much of an ask for him?
No, I mean,
No.
The way that the Rams leverage their defense is so clever. They are so good. The two strongest elements of this team are the defensive front and their secondary. And the way that they kind of leverage that and kind of force mistakes and they force 3 and outs, it's really incredible to watch. And it kind of harkens back to a couple of years ago, the year they went to the Super Bowl. A lot of that was done off of, yes, they had an insane offense that year, but then when you get to the better teams, they were playing great defense, and they're playing great defense now. And the Rams, in my opinion, are working themselves into kind of being one of the dark horse teams for the playoffs this year. The kind of team that once they get there, they're well coached. They've got a quarterback who's been there, done it before. He knows what he's doing. They've got maybe one of the best defenses in the league and a solid stable of skill position players. So I think the beat-up 49ers are going to really struggle against this Rams team.
Yeah, the Rams, everything you said there, just so well coached. The interesting thing for me is with this Niners team, they're obviously going to look to run the ball. It's what they do. And Mullins has had games where he can just do what they need to do, almost be a system guy in that offense and still put up points on decent defenses. But I think the problem is their defense, I don't think is going to be able to withhold it. I think Kupp just went for a monster of a week. Goff got the job done. He looked like he was in the zone, just locked in. If he can keep that moving, it's fine. But then we've seen it from Goff before. One week he looks incredible. The next week he just doesn't seem like he really knows what he really wants to do out there. So I think that's the window for this Niners team, is if they can establish the run and just let Mullins, not force him to do too much, just get him to do what we've seen him do before, and maybe capitalise on Goff having a bad day. Maybe there's a chance. But I think it's unlikely. I think this Rams team is really starting to hit its run and just really get ready and be like, right, we're going into January hot and people aren't seeing us coming. They're talking about everyone else, but suddenly we're here and we want to win this time.
You've got to take the play action. You've got to take the play action away from Goff if the Niners want to win this game. Like, Goff relies very heavily on the play action, and when he's able to use that, and he's maybe the best in the league at using the play action. And when you've seen the Rams struggle historically in the last couple of years, it's when teams take that away from him. And if you can kind of hold up against the play action, you give yourself a much better chance of beating this Rams team.
Yeah. But also the under over here is set at 46.5, which is low. I don't know your boys' opinions, but me personally, I'll be taking the under on that one.
Under?
Yeah, I can see the Rams defense sort of shutting down the 49ers. At that point, you're then backing the Rams to put up 40-odd points or 30, high 30s, you know what I mean? Which I think is a tough ask. So at that point, the under over at 46.5 looks just a bit out of reach for this game.
I could see this being just to get the job done. Nothing. They don't need to do anything special.
Yeah.
It's the Niners think are going to be a weird, almost sounds really weird to say it's about the Niners, given what we all thought at the start of the year with all the injuries. It's a weird kind of trap game. That there's still pieces there. There is still ability there in the way that they scheme.
Yeah.
But they're not. It's just an odd kind of team to come up against because you don't quite know what you're going to get and how they're going to mesh and how these guys who are filling in are going to perform. See, I think I'm going to avoid the over-under, but I think if you were like, Matt, you've got to place a bet, I think I'm going under as well, but I won't be putting money there unless I'm forced.
Hopefully, over-under.
I mean, it's very rare for me to actually back under-overs, but I think this is one that I'd feel more confident in doing for some reason. Just glows to me right now. It's just glowing. But right, let's shift things on to another late Sunday matchup.
What a
big-time matchup between the Chiefs and the Buccaneers. I mean, Matt, do your Bucs have what it takes, especially after that loss against the Rams? Can you do it against the Chiefs?
Biggest thing, we're not playing in the dark, so, we'll look better. I mean, the fact that the Rams, we said they're well coached, and it was by a field goal. Whatever happened on that last drive, I don't know. I think Brady at fault. I think the coaching needs work. I think we talk about the Rams being well coached. There was moments where the Bucs just don't adjust. It seems to be like we go in with a set thing and there is no room. It's I don't know. I don't know quite. I don't get it. It feels like you've got a small window here with Brady. He's not going to be around for long. There's going to be cap issues at some point with everything we've got going on. You need to adapt and you need to just put yourself in the best position each game, not just, this is our plan. Oh, it's not working. Keep doing it. I don't know. I'm surprised as well because it's such an experienced coaching staff and there must be chemistry because they've worked together for so long in different places, but they just don't seem to get it right. But then again, I said earlier, it's not a primetime game. So I think it'll be competitive, but I just think Mahomes and that Chiefs offense are just, it's another level. Like, you can put him behind the guff. You can make it think, all right, you've got to go down there and like against the Raiders, and he will just pull it out and he will get it done. So I think unless the Bucs come out and it is what we've seen, like akin to what we did against the Packers, unless we come out and play like we did in that game, I mean, that's spread at what, -2.5 on the Chiefs. I hate to do it, but I'll be betting on that. Unless it's the best version of the Bucs, and even then it just makes it competitive because the Chiefs are just great. They are an incredible team.
You can't bet against them. You just there is betting wise. They're one of those kind of few teams in history that you just can't bring yourself to bet against them because Mahomes is that good that whenever he's down, I mean, Mahomes could be down 21 points with 7 minutes left in a game, and there aren't many people in the world that would rule him out. Yeah. From almost any other team, 21 points, 7 minutes, you're like, right, well, this is done, let's all go home. But with Mahomes, until that whistle has gone, you think, maybe there's a chance. So, I'm taking the Chiefs here. They're the better team all around. Yeah. But the Buccaneers do have it in them. If the Buccaneers play their best football that we've seen them play this season, then the Buccaneers can win this game. So I think the Chiefs win it, and I'm betting on the Chiefs and everything like that. But it's not one of those that I think the Buccaneers aren't making this competitive. If they show up, they could win the game. They are good enough on their day.
Yeah, there's so many if buts and maybes for that to happen, I think. And on the surface, Chiefs just the better team all round.
No, but I think the way I phrased it wrong. I think if both teams play their best football, the Bucs are the better team. The Chiefs are just way more consistent. And
I'm
that's
biased,
kind of what I'm getting at, because I think offensively the Chiefs probably just edge the Bucs when everyone's firing on all cylinders, but that Buccaneers defense is just a bullhawk, nasty unit when it's playing its best football. The issue has been all season with the Bucs, maybe some slight dodgy coaching issues, some silly mistakes on the field with penalties and stuff like that. It's the little things that add up for the Bucs that make silly losses happen. Like, I still think they should have beaten the Rams last night, especially with the way that the Bucs started. I thought they looked a bit better at the start of the game, but the Chiefs are just all round more consistent.
Yeah, 100% agree with that. 100% agree, and that makes me want to bet on the Chiefs as well for this game. Right, we have a Sunday night football match up here that sees the Bears off the back of a bye going into Green Bay to play the Packers, who of course just lost to the Colts. And which quarterback would you guys like to see start for the Bears, given that there's a few potential injury concerns for both of them right now?
I mean, give it back to Trubisky, I think, for me. At this point, this Bears team is doing nothing. When Trubisky was in, they were winning. It might not be a ton of games, but they were winning and they looked decent. Since Foles came in, they sort of clung on for a few wins, and then now you're seeing what I think, and we kind of hinted at it, the real Bears team. I think they still have it in them to be that disruptive, hard to play against team, just because of the nature of that defense, that if they show up, they're not easy to do anything against. But is the offense going to do enough? And when you're against the Packers, as much as you need your defense to be on form, your offense has to be as well, because you just have to keep up. Because a good day for a defense against this Packers team is maybe keeping them in, 21 points around that region. So can the Bears put that up? Because this Packers defense is quietly, it's all right as well. They're not an easy walk by any means. So -7.5, the opening spread on that. I think I'd be lining up to take it. but I'd be very nervous about it just because I could see this. If it was 6.5 all day, I could just see this maybe being a 1-touchdown game, or the Bears, if the defense shows up, maybe having enough to keep them around it. But it's got to be Packers for the win.
This is the one for me. Logically, Packers taking this with the spread. The Bears' offense is just so stagnant, and in terms of which quarterback starts, I don't think it really matters. It's each quarterback has got such kind of crucial flaws and things that they do badly that it doesn't matter. It's like Foles, yeah, he can deliver the ball well and stuff, but he's too slow, he's stagnant in the pocket, he's the definition of what the NFL was 15, 20 years ago in terms of quarterback. Trubisky, yeah, great, he can roll out the pocket and he can move, but he's not accurate in any way whatsoever. So I don't think you can really trust any of them behind centre, and realistically, they need to sort that out this year because everything else on this team is in a spot to win now, I think. They just need a quarterback that can deliver them some wins.
Yeah. And on the other side of the ball, the Packers have that quarterback, right? In Aaron Rodgers.
And then some.
And then some, yeah. He's on a massive, big year. I've gone on about Aaron Rodgers this year. Him and Devonta Adams have looked like a brilliant partnership this year, and they're blowing people apart in fantasy and in games, so it's hard to bet against the Packers on this game, especially with those quarterback questions like you boys have mentioned there. So yeah, I'm taking the Packers on the spread and the money line. Give me that any day. It's I think it'll be fairly comfortable for the Packers to get the win here. But right, we have the final game of the week, which is a Monday Night Football matchup between the Seahawks and the Eagles. Now, first of all, how bad has Carson Wentz looked this season? It's not looked good for him. But this also looking bad this year is the Seahawks defense. Mm-hmm. So maybe this could be a week where he can perform. What do you reckon?
I think he's got to. If you look at what's going on in Philly at the moment in terms of that fan base, they've never been the most forgiving, I guess is the right word. And right now they are calling for Wentz's head, which the way that spun, if you'd have said a couple of years ago this would be the situation, you'd have been laughed at. You'd have been like, what is that for? Like, there's hot takes and then there's just, that's not going to happen. But we're in that position now. I think it's harsh to blame it all on Wentz, but he has made bad decisions. As much as you can say there's all the injuries, he's given no time. They don't really have an O-line. It's a revolving door in front of him when the ball gets snapped. He's still making bad decisions. And I think maybe his head's just gone. I think mentally, I think everyone there knows, and I reckon there must be some little feeling between sort of him and the coaching staff. And I don't think this is a long-term partnership now. I think it's hit that kind of point where too much is going on, that he could come out now and look good for the rest of the year. But if he came out week 1 next year and had a bad game, we'd be right back to where we are now. And you're never going to get the best out of a player doing that. And the Seahawks, I think they're just going to run away with this. Like, if this spread is what I'm seeing at -5, yes, all day long. Like, happily take that. Happily.
Yeah, Carson Wentz is... Carson Wentz, I think the best way to put it is he gets paid far too much money to be an injury concern and throw that many picks.
Yeah.
And be that risky with the ball. Now, whether they move on from him at some point in the next 2 years, I think is probably quite likely. I think they've quietly been kind of trying to get Jalen Hurts on the field in all sorts of packages. I think they wanted him to kind of be like their Taysom Hill. So it wouldn't surprise me if the Eagles continue to look bad if they don't try and work Hurts into it and see what they've got with Hurts. And then on the flip side, you've got a guy who, he's had a couple of rough games, but, I mean, Russell Wilson's still thrown, I think, 30 touchdowns to 10 interceptions this year. 3-to-1 touchdown to interception ratio. Like, that is very good. Yeah. So I don't think that the Seahawks' bad defense is bad enough to lose them this game. The Seahawks just have the better offense and should be able to win a shootout.
Yeah, and ultimately as well, the last few games, the Seahawks defense has started to step up a little bit, especially in the passing game, and even more so in the run game actually as well. So I think it's going to be another bad week for Carson Wentz, which is bad for my lookalike, of course. Don't want to say it, don't want to see it, but it's hard to imagine an Eagles win in this game. So yeah, Seahawks on the spread at -5 seems pretty favourable for me to back. So I'll be taking that as well as you boys.
it just
sounds like
it's a shame really, because this does feel like one of those games that if the Eagles hadn't had all of those injuries, that might have been a really good Monday night football game, especially with two teams that could both be really competitive in their divisions at this time of the year. But I think just the fact that the Seahawks basically have to win this game now to kind of keep pace with the Cardinals and the Rams, and because that is such a competitive division in the NFC West, I think this makes it a very hard-fought game for the Eagles.
Yeah, 100%, 100% hard-fought game. Can't put it any other way, I think, at this point. But that is every single game in Week 12 previewed.
All
A lot of exciting all 16. A lot of exciting matchups, including those Thanksgiving games as well, which I know we're all very much looking forward to. Amongst others as well, of course, on Sunday and Monday as well. But unless you boys have any other points to raise, I believe that is all we've got time for today. So as ever, be sure to head over to YouTube, go like, comment, and subscribe. Make sure you turn on the notification bell as well. It will let you know when we've posted out an episode. Also head over to Twitter and Instagram. Check us out on there. We're at the Brit Iron, and go get involved with the conversation. But for now, thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time. See ya.